Hi, and welcome to the course. My name is Charles Schell, and together with Dr. Andy Lin, I'm going to be working with you over the next few weeks on this course that I hope you'll find is going to be very interesting and very productive. The format that we're using is, of course, going to be the online format, a mixture of pre-recorded sessions and synchronous sessions that we'll be working on together. We have our regular classes, we have some case studies to work through. It's going to be a very busy few weeks. In the next little while, in this session, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our course and some of the expectations that we have and some of the resources. But before we do anything else, perhaps we should start off with a little bit of an introduction to us. And to do that, I'm going to let Andy tell us a little bit about himself. Andy?
Hello, I'm Dr. Andy Lin, one of the two instructors of this course, MBAA 525, which is a very exciting finance course. Today, I would like to offer a brief introduction of myself. Then I will discuss my teaching approach, so you will be able to better prepare yourself for the course. I went to California in 1983 to work on my MBA, and I completed the program with finance concentration in 1987. Then I moved to Texas to continue my finance PhD program. I started my teaching career from 1988, so it has been 33 years of teaching. I have taught various courses in both MBA and BBA programs, including financial management, international finance, investment, and real estate investment. I came to VIU in 2003 and was the chair of the finance department from 2006 to 2009. After that, I was VIU's China program coordinator. Over the years, I established more than 30 partnership programs for VIU with Chinese university. In 2018, I decided to come back to teaching, which is my favorite work, and that's why I'm here today. My teaching approach is exactly what you have experienced today. Before our classes, I will prepare teaching notes and pre-recorded lectures for you. They will be available from our course tutorial website. You are expected to preview the course materials. Then, in our regular classes, I will provide in-depth discussion of important concepts and answer questions whatever you may have. Definitely, instruction regarding the assignments will also be provided. I will start my teaching from week 3, which is actually the week of May 24th, and I will cover 4 important chapters for you. For now, I will just say goodbye and best wishes to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Stay safe and well. Thank you.
Well, and that's Andy. I've been working together with Andy for several years, since I started at VIU. And I can tell you that definitely he is one of the most approachable professors that we have. And I hope you have a chance to work with him, both in this online format, but also in days to come in person when we're meeting at the university. A little bit about myself. I haven't been at VIU quite as long as Andy. My career took a very different trajectory. In fact, when I first went to university and I studied, my first degree was not in finance or economics. It was actually in skiing. I did a program where I studied to be a ski instructor and a park guide, and I did whitewater canoeing and whitewater kayaking, climbing, all kinds of interesting things like that for several years after I graduated. And in that business, I kind of worked from being a person who worked on skis to being a person who worked in marketing and in the office, and eventually transitioned through a number of very strange steps to becoming a financial analyst. Now, because of some changes in the industry, I ended up working for a company called Dun & Bradstreet, and they seconded me to work for their bond rating firm in New York called Moody's. And while I was there, it kind of occurred to me that even though I'd had a lot of great on-the-job training, and I'd done professional qualifications like the CFA program, I still had a degree in skiing. And if somebody ever asked about my qualifications, it might be a little bit embarrassing. I applied to do an MBA program, The MBA program looked at my qualifications and said, "You have a degree in skiing." And when they stopped laughing, they said no. So I went back and did another undergraduate degree in economics. And then I did an MBA program. At the end of my MBA, I had to do a project, and my project took me to Japan, where I worked for a Canadian Forest Company investigating their markets for softwood lumber. And at the end of that, I stayed in Japan for a couple of years, working for a Japanese company, explaining foreigners to them. After a couple of years in Japan, I decided I was going to head home, but I stopped off to visit a friend in Papua New Guinea. And while I was there, I got a short-term contract, followed by another short-term contract, followed by a longer-term contract working with people in Papua New Guinea. In fact, I spent a couple of years in Papua New Guinea working in a company that had sawmilling interests, cocoa, coffee. They ran the retail and the wholesale food systems. They even ran the hospital and the school system for part of my time there. And a very interesting job. We had about 3,000 employees, people that came to work every day with a machete. And definitely labor relations were much more interesting than I'd seen elsewhere. After a couple of years in Papua New Guinea, I decided to head back home, but I stopped off in England for a little while. In fact, my stop in England lasted the next 12 years, where I, through a number of, again, strange stages, became a lecturer at Manchester Business School. In fact, I worked for Manchester Business School in their MBA program, their doctoral program, for many years. And I've been involved with them until the last couple, where I'm still technically a visiting professor. The program that we set up for Manchester Business School worldwide actually took us to just about every part of the world. It started off with executive education for a number of banks, including Standard Chartered Bank and all of their worldwide locations. And we somehow rolled that into an MBA program that operates and still continues to operate with about 3,000 students in 8 different locations around the world. So I would travel to our Malaysia campus, or Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, Brazil, South Africa, and do courses for do my MBA courses for the program. And I would actually travel to see our students twice a year. While I was doing that, I moved back to Vancouver Island, and I've been there since. But I continue to travel and speak for Manchester on alumni sessions, and also to work with companies. You will see that I have a collection of many of my past experiences documented through my contacts on LinkedIn, where I have a couple of thousand ex-students who are still contacted, and they become part of the alumni base that you will hopefully someday join. Today I'm at my house in the Southern Gulf Islands. In fact, down here in the bottom right-hand corner behind me, you'll see there's a little tiny island called Parker Island. And I'm currently at my house in Parker Island. It is a very small island with about 20 houses. And there's no connection to the rest of the world by bridges or by road. So I get back and forth to VIU in a 65-year-old fishing boat that's semi-retired called Viking Mariner. That's a little bit about myself, and you've had a chance to meet Andy. A little bit more about the course itself. Now, one of the most important principles that we have in a course like this, we're trying to understand value, and value itself is not just a mathematical formula. It's not objective, it's subjective. It depends on the interpretation of value. What's valuable to me might not be equally valuable to you. How much stuff is worth depends on many of the assumptions that we have to make about, well, 3 basic things. How much cash flow or profit we're going to gain from the venture. When are we going to see the money? And how much uncertainty is going to be involved in the production of that. And that becomes essentially our value equation. And a lot of what we do in the next 7 weeks is going to be about understanding that complicated relationship and interpreting it. Of course, nothing is worth anything unless there's somebody to buy it. And so we have to have an efficient system of markets. And as well as being about valuation, finance is about understanding markets and capital markets, a discipline that we're going to study in greater depth in our next finance course, MBAA 545. Epistemology is essentially our understanding of knowledge, our philosophy of knowledge. And I thought I'd say a few words about our course epistemology before we get started on the course. It's important to make sure that this course is up to date. Textbooks can never be up to date because, of course, the world changes well before the textbook is completed and printed. So we have to make up for that with our contributions during this course, our discussions. Remember that because it is what it is, 2021, one of the strangest years of my life, there's some things that are going to be more important than ever. Knowing things, knowing facts is important. You have to use facts in order to make decisions. But availability of facts is relatively cheap and easy. Now, I know when I say something in class, quite often people will be Googling it to check and see if it's true. I recall being in front of a group of about 300 people, and I made a comment about the last quarter's GDP in China being something like 7.2%. And somebody in the front rows already got their phone out and they've checked the stats and they say, actually it was 7.6%. Well, facts are easy. Anybody can find facts. Anybody who can use Google. So are we going to spend a lot of time getting you to memorize facts in this course? No, that's not important. Skills are also important. Being able to do certain types of calculations, being able to use a spreadsheet, those things are important. And that's one of the things, those are generally the things that employers expect of our graduates, that they can do certain things. They understand how to calculate the present value, or they can use an Excel spreadsheet in order to get some kind of an answer. And we will be doing that during this course. But keep in mind that a lot of the things that we're learning, a lot of the skills that we're learning are going to evolve over our careers. When I started using a spreadsheet, it was actually a piece of paper that I had to use in my MBA classes. I'd buy it in the bookstore and I'd fill in the rows and columns with a pencil. And if you were really lucky, you had a calculator. And otherwise, you were there counting your fingers and toes, trying to figure out how the spreadsheet worked. Well, of course, over my career, I've seen several different variants of an Excel spreadsheet from different companies, and they've come and they've gone. And by the time you're finished your careers, we'll probably be using artificial intelligence to create those spreadsheets. They won't really be an important skill that will provide us with a lot of marketable value. What never goes out of style, what will always be important, is our ability to gather that information, to be able to manage the information, and to be able to make a good judgment, especially based on incomplete facts. That judgment is what we're going to try and help you with over the next few weeks. Developing your own judgment, developing some confidence in the judgment and the skills that you already have. Now, our course emphasizes judgment over the ability to report facts, to produce ratios, to use other types of skills. In fact, there is an interesting type of competition between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is essentially the ability to gather and manage facts, and that's important. But what really makes us valuable as leaders, as managers, and what will help us with careers in the future is the wisdom to be able to apply our judgment, to be able to use that information. So these things aren't the same. In fact, quite often, knowledge and wisdom are competitors. Skills, as I mentioned earlier, spreadsheets, are very important. In fact, you'll see this is an example of a spreadsheet that a student did for an exam a couple of years ago with Andy and I. And yeah, it's it is a complicated and important piece of work. But that's not what the course is about. We're not about doing spreadsheets. Some people have come to the course with backgrounds in marketing or HR, operations, and they're probably wondering, why do I have to do finance? Why do I have to do 3 courses in finance in this MBA program? Well, we don't train people in an MBA to become marketing people or finance people or HR operations people. We train them to become leaders. And if you want to get ahead in business, if you want to get into a leadership role, you need to know a little bit about everything. In fact, you need to know a lot about everything. Great question. Why do non-financial managers need to know about finance? Well, everybody needs to know how to keep score. Everybody needs to know how to read, to understand the accounts, to improve the accounts. And in fact, you're also going to be responsible as a manager, whether you are an expert or not. An interesting example is a fellow by the name of Bernie Ebers. He went to a Canadian business school. He rose through a variety of different businesses in marketing to become the head of, well, the world's second largest telecom company, a company called WorldCom. In 2008, WorldCom got into trouble. It had a bad year. It caused the markets and investigators to look more closely at his company, and they discovered accounting fraud. Well, Bernie said, I'm a marketing guy. He said, I should have looked more carefully at what those finance and accounting people told me, but I'm a marketing guy. I trusted them to do their job. Well, that argument didn't work. Bernie got sent to jail for over 10 years because it was his name on the annual reports signing that this information was true and fair. And he basically spent the rest of his life in jail. He was let out just before he died a couple years ago. Bernie has strong connections to Canada. He was originally from Winnipeg. He owned the biggest ranch in British Columbia, in fact, the biggest ranch in the world. But in the end, he spent his final days in jail because he didn't know about finance. And we don't want any of our students to be in that position. Now, the curriculum we're going to be covering is compressed. There's a lot of material to cover. And you'll see from the course outline and from the actual schedule of classes that we have, there's a lot to do between this week and the end of the course. We have many chapters to cover. You see the chapters are listed from the custom book. And there's also a connection in that next column of the sources of that, because our custom book is compiled of information from several sources. 2 of the best known corporate finance textbooks, as well as some material that I've added, and also some additional case study information. There are also recorded lectures that will be posted each week, and each week you'll get an email reminding you what's due and what material you need to cover this week. And don't get behind, because in 7 weeks, if you're behind at all, you're going to have trouble with the course. There are assignments, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those later. But we have got essentially a 4-part report that is due that will be about a particular company. And we'll tell you about that in the company project guide and also a video that goes with that. Other resources include our textbook, which comes from McGraw-Hill, although it is made up of a couple different textbook sources. You can access that directly through McGraw-Hill and their custom book site, which is connected through a hyperlink to this page and also to the course outline. And you can also get that through the VIU library. So there is a download access through the library that you're supposed to use, although it's a little bit cheaper to go directly to McGraw-Hill. A very important source for this course will be the VIU Learn virtual learning environment. And so you'll see that there's a lot of material that has already been posted into this in the content section. All of your assignments will be submitted through the assessment section. We'll be using the discussion forums quite exhaustively. In fact, people, if they want information, the best way to get a hold of Andy or myself is through the discussion forum. And we'll talk a little bit more about that during our synchronous session. So essentially, if you have a question and it's not a personal question, you can ask us using the discussion forum. That way we can pass the information back to everybody. And remember to click on the subscribe stars for each of the discussion forums, and then they'll pop up in your email in basket as well whenever there's a comment or a thread forming in that discussion. We will be using a lot of recorded video material. So rather than have me talk to a camera during our class sections, I've recorded, and Andy will be recording the class sessions and posting those onto VIU Learn as we go through the course. There'll be an opportunity to discuss each of these sessions during each week's class session. So these will be posted on YouTube, and you'll be able to get access to those even after you finish the course. We still are working on the process for office hours, but essentially the best time to meet is during our class times, and if we need additional hours, we will schedule them, especially when projects are due or before any kind of submitted piece of work. For myself, I have my Zoom number, and I'll post Andy's later. So this Zoom number will get you through to me anytime we need to have a discussion. You can also contact me, and you'll see the information. Contact Andy as well through our telephone numbers as well as our email contact information. Right. Evaluation, everybody's favorite topic. I mentioned earlier we have a company's project, and the company's project is worth 60%, although we will be accepting the project in 3 stages. That means if you don't do very well on the first part, you'll get a little bit of feedback how to do better on the second and then the third part. The evaluation exercise is actually like the 4th part of the company project, where you can actually apply some of the things that you've learned about your company, the company that you will be assigned, to produce a valuation. And then finally there's continuous evaluation, which is based on your participation in class sessions, your participation in VIU Learn, and essentially our understanding of your coverage of the course material. Now, we do have some assumptions that we've made about what you know already. We know that you know about time value of money and the mathematics, certainly the quantitative aspects, because you covered that in the MBAA 515 course. We also know and expect that you have got a good understanding of the accounting process and accounting information, how financial information is reported. Although, as we go through the course, Andy and I will be very happy to help you with any questions that you've got. Dealing with real company information can be a little bit confusing. And so we always start off with the company accounts and the interpretation of that information. In fact, you'll see that when you look at a company's accounts, there are generally 2 parts. There's the quantitative part, the numbers, but there's also the management discussion. And that's a great place to start understanding a company. We also will use things like brokers' reports, some of which I've posted onto VIU Learn already for the companies that we're doing. We have company filings, which you can also access from the company's web pages and also from sources like Mergent, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the course. EDGAR, which is the U.S. government site for the Securities and Exchange Commission, where documents like this one for Google have been posted, and the Canadian version of that called SEDAR, which is for Canadian companies with Ontario listings. Brokers' reports are essentially reports that are produced by investment banks who follow those companies and market the securities to their clients. And so for that reason, this information is a great place to start. And you'll see that I've already posted some information about the companies that we'll be using in the course that you'll be using in VIU Learn. And so that's already a good summary that you can use. For example, here's Costco and a Morningstar report produced by Morningstar and republished from my online account. And we'll be using Mergent. Mergent is an online database that we have free access to through the library. You can get access to Mergent from directly from the internet by Googling it, but we have a more complete source that's available through VIU Library and the database section. And I'll talk a little bit about that during our next session. Speaking of next session, for next week, for the first week of class, and I'll be doing this every week as we go through, take a look in the the custom textbook, which is, I guess, online, at chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 1, really easy. Basically, this is finance. Chapter 2, however, is quite important. It includes a lot of the fundamental information we need to do the rest of the course. So spend a fair bit of time with that. Take a look at the material on VIU Learn. Sometimes we call that D2L. And take a look at the newly posted financial performance video. Right. That's all I've got for you today. I hope that this has been a good introduction to the course. I look forward to meeting all of you and getting to know all of you over the next few weeks. It'll be a busy course, and I hope you have fun. Thanks.